Stop before you believe one more headline about the Canadian housing market. I need 60 seconds of your time. Canada's population just shrunk for the third quarter in a row. That has never happened before in this country. Not once, not in over 150 years of record keeping. If you are watching the national news right now, you think every single city in this country is about to fall off a cliff. But I live here, I work here, I have closed deals in every quadrant of the city for almost 20 years. And I'm telling you straight, Calgary did not get that memo. It is not the story of Calgary. Because while the rest of the country is shrinking, Alberta just crossed 5 million people, a record high, and is the only province in the entire country that actually grew last quarter. Today, I'm walking you through the real numbers for June 2026, not the ones that make a scary thumbnail, the ones that actually move your money. There's a lot to cover, so let's get into it. Let's start with what's actually happening nationally, because you need to understand the real story before you can understand where Calgary is different. Statistics Canada confirm it. The country lost over 55,000 people in the first 3 months of this year. Canada lost over 55,000 people in the first 3 months of this year. That follows a drop of over 100,000 in the quarter before that. That is latter part of last year. 3 quarters in a row, all in the same direction. Down. The main driver is the federal government pulling back on temporary residents, work permits, and study permits, trying to get that population under 5% of the country by next year. Ontario took the worst of it, losing over 30,000 people in a single quarter. British Columbia lost over 20,000. Quebec lost almost 18,000. That is the headline. That's what freezing buyers in Toronto and pushing rents down in Vancouver. And if you only watch national news, you would apply the same fear to Calgary. Here is the problem with that. Alberta added people, not flat, not slightly down, actually grew, while every other major province either shrunk or barely moved. So where is Alberta the exception? 2 things, and you need to understand both because they affect different parts of your decision. The first one is inter-provincial migration. People moving from one Canadian province to another. Alberta has been the #1 destination for that kind of move for 14 consecutive quarters. 14. That's not luck. That's not a one-time event. That's a multi-year pattern of Ontarians and British Columbians voting with their moving trucks. They are coming for the jobs, and they are coming for a cost of living that doesn't feel like a punishment every single month. Second, this matters if you are watching this as a newcomer to Canada. The second is permanent immigration. Alberta took in roughly 13% of all the permanent residents Canada welcomed last year. And here is the number that actually matters if you are deciding where to put down roots. Of immigrants who arrive in Alberta, 86% of them were still living in this province 5 years later. That is the second highest retention rate in the entire country, behind only Ontario. And it is meaningfully higher than British Columbia. People who move here for housing stability normally stay. So put those 2 things together. That is Canadians moving in from other provinces, interprovincial migration, and immigrants who arrive and actually stay, and you get a province that grew while the rest of the country shrunk. Now, here's where it gets genuinely interesting and where most buyers get the entire story backwards. If you look at Calgary's overall benchmark home price, it's sitting at $570,500 as of this past month. That's down about 3% from a year ago. If you stop reading right there, you assume the whole city is softening across the board. You will be wrong, because right now Calgary is not one housing market. It's at least 2 completely different ones operating inside the same city limits, and depending on which one you are looking at, the story is almost opposite. City #1 is detached homes. The benchmark price there has climbed to $747,800, and it actually rose every single month since January this year. We are sitting at roughly 2.5 months of supply in that segment, and that 3 months is considered tight. If you are a buyer waiting for detached home prices in Calgary to crash, you are waiting on a train that already left the station back in January this year. And it gets more specific than that. This isn't even uniform across the city. The west side and the south district are in full seller's market conditions right now, and are 2 months of supply, hitting record high prices this year. Meanwhile, the northeast district is still seeing year-over-year declines and sits firmly in buyer's market territory. So you have certain areas in seller's condition, certain areas in buyer's condition. So even detached homes, it isn't one story. It depends which side of the city you are shopping in, and that is very, very important to note. City number 2. So we are having 2 cities here in Calgary right now when it comes to the market, the real estate market. So city number 2 is apartment condos. This is where that population slowdown is actually showing up in real numbers. Supply has pushed past 5 months, more than double what we are seeing in detached. The benchmark price has dropped to $300,400. That is down 9% from a year ago, and it is the steepest decline of any property in this city. And there is a third story that almost nobody talks about: row homes and townhouses. The benchmark there sits at $422,300, down 6% year over year, but stabilizing. It's basically the middle ground between the tight detached market and the soft condo market, which makes it worth a serious look if you are priced out of the detached but want more space than a condo gives you. So what does all of this actually mean for the 4 types of people watching this video right now? For the 4 types, I mean first-time buyers, sellers, investors, and people moving here. So if you are a first-time buyer and a detached home is genuinely out of reach for your budget, stop chasing it and look hard at that condo market, or seriously consider a townhome. If you have real negotiating leverage in that segment for the first time in years, you can get into a condo around 300,000 mark, push hard on price because sellers are competing for fewer buyers, and finally stop paying someone else's mortgage through rent. It is the most affordable segment of the market right now. If you are relocating here from Ontario or BC, or you are a newcomer to Canada choosing where to settle, this data should genuinely reassure you. You are moving into a province that is still growing while almost everywhere else is shrinking, with an immigrant retention rate that tells you people who arrive here tend to stay and build a life. That's not nothing when you are deciding where to plant roots. If you are a mover buyer, this might be your window. Sell into a market that is holding reasonably steady, and buy into a detached segment that the headline says is falling, when in several districts it's actually setting record highs. If you're an investor, be careful with assumptions left over from 2024, 2023, 2024 season. This is not a free money market anymore. You need to underwrite for cash flow, not just hope appreciation bails you out, because rents are leveling off as population growth normalizes. I'll be doing a full breakdown specifically for investors in a follow-up video, so subscribe if that's relevant to you. And here is the bottom line: Canada might be shrinking for the first time in our history. Calgary is not. In several segments, it's actually tightening. Don't let a national headline make a local decision for you, because the data this month makes it very clear those are 2 different stories entirely. If you want to know exactly what these numbers mean for your specific pre-approval, your home's current equity, or your next move in this market, there are links to home equity calculator, home value calculator, and other free guides in the description below. Hit subscribe if you want the real numbers, no spin every single month, and I will see you in the next one. If you care to know about me, my name is Conrad Agler. I've spent 20 years in Calgary real estate and mortgage financing, licensed in mortgage since 2010, licensed in real estate covering residential, commercial, and rural since 2014, and I've personally closed over 400 transactions across every corner of this city. So this is the kind of analysis I run for my clients every single week. and can be local, hyper local, and narrow down on whatever question you have and find a solution for you. So until next time, have a beautiful day. See you in the next video.